It was supposed to be a routine oversight hearing, a procedural gathering in a packed committee room, aired live to millions of Americans. Bill Barr, the former Attorney General, had been summoned to answer for recent comments he made questioning the integrity of several sitting members of Congress. But the real tension simmered around one name, Representative Jasmine Crockett. Crockett had already earned a reputation as a fearless voice in Washington, sharp on the facts and quicker with a comeback. Barr, meanwhile, had come in with a smirk and a mission, to undermine her credibility in front of the cameras. The hearing opened with calm exchanges, until Barr began his statement. Then, things escalated fast. "I find it deeply troubling," Barr said, leaning into the microphone, "that some members of this body, like Representative Crockett, prefer theatrics over substance. This country needs serious leadership, not sound bites and social media spectacles." The room went quiet. Crockett didn't flinch. She sat back, folded her hands, and waited. Then she smiled. "Mr. Barr," she said, microphone glowing red, "you're lecturing me about theatrics after running PR for one of the most chaotic administrations in American history?" The air shifted. You could hear murmurs ripple through the chamber. "And that was just the beginning," Barr raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting Crockett to fire back so quickly, or so calmly. But Crockett wasn't finished. She leaned forward slowly, keeping her tone measured but piercing. "You sat in the highest legal seat in the country and watched institutions bend under pressure. Now you're here accusing me of performative politics." Barr adjusted his tie, visibly uncomfortable. "Congresswoman, I came here to provide insight, not to engage in personal sparring." "Good," Crockett cut in, "because if it were a sparring match, I'd already be 3 punches ahead." Laughter broke out across the room, even from a few on the Republican side. The chairman banged the gavel, calling for order, but it was too late. Crockett had seized the momentum. She pulled out a printed quote from Barr's previous interview on a conservative news outlet. "Let me read what you said 2 weeks ago. Some of these new members of Congress don't even understand how laws are made. They're too busy chasing cameras. Tell me, sir, was that not about me?" Barr's silence was telling. Crockett raised her eyes. "Because if it was, I suggest you brush up on Article 1 of the Constitution. I've written, co-sponsored, and passed more legislation in 2 years than you supported in your entire time as AG." Barr finally spoke, trying to steer the discussion back. "That's not the point I was making, no," she said. "The point you were making is that you thought I'd sit here and let you discredit me on national television. You thought wrong." The hearing room was now electric. Cameras zoomed in. Staffers behind the dais stopped shuffling papers. Even seasoned lawmakers leaned forward in their chairs. Something was unfolding, and Jasmine Crockett was in complete control. Bill Barr attempted to pivot. "Congresswoman, if you feel personally targeted, that's unfortunate. But my criticism applies broadly to members who prioritize headlines over real work." Crockett cocked her head slightly, her voice still calm but razor-sharp. "Unfortunately? No, Mr. Barr, what's unfortunate is watching a former Attorney General come here and pretend he wasn't deliberately undermining a woman of color who holds him accountable." Barr flinched. The remark struck harder than he anticipated. He opened his mouth to object, but Crockett continued, this time lifting a binder from her desk and flipping it open. "I came prepared. Let's talk about real work. Here's a list of 27 bills I've co-authored, 12 passed in committee, and 6 signed into law. Housing reform, policing standards, veterans' access to care. While you were on talk shows defending political interference, I was working." She paused. "You want to accuse me of chasing cameras? Funny, because I don't remember you refusing a single Fox News booking when it benefited you." The gallery behind the press box stirred audibly. Barr looked around, now clearly frustrated but boxed in. He hadn't expected Crockett to come with receipts, much less dismantle him piece by piece, live, and with undeniable precision. Bill Barr leaned back, crossing his arms in a gesture meant to project confidence, but his eyes betrayed unease. Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was rewriting the narrative, on her terms. "You see, Mr. Barr," she said, her voice steady, "what you call theatrics, I call clarity. What you call chasing cameras, I call transparency. And what you call a spectacle, well, that's just you being uncomfortable with a woman who refuses to be silent." The crowd behind her erupted in soft applause before the gavel came down again. The chairman warned the audience to remain silent, but Crockett didn't pause. She was locked in. She pulled out another document, this time, a transcript of Barr's closed-door testimony from 2 years ago. "I read every page of your testimony, sir. You told Congress under oath that you felt political pressure but acted independently. Yet days later, you ordered an intervention in a criminal case involving the president's ally." Barr interrupted, "That's not an accurate characterization." "Oh, it's precise," Crockett snapped. "You used the Justice Department as a shield for political interests, and now you're here questioning my integrity?" She paused, letting the silence stretch. Then, with a calm smile, "I don't need cameras to expose hypocrisy. I just need a microphone and the truth." The silence in the chamber was deafening. Barr looked down. He had come to undermine her, but now, under the harsh glow of live TV, he was the one on defense, cornered by nothing but facts. Bill Barr's composure was unraveling. He adjusted his glasses, cleared his throat, and tried one last time to regain the high ground. "Congresswoman, I'm not here to relitigate every decision I made as Attorney General. I'm here to offer perspective on the current dysfunction in government, something I believe you're contributing to." Crockett's smile vanished. "Oh, I'm contributing to dysfunction," she repeated slowly. "You mean by holding powerful men accountable? By not sitting quietly while someone who enabled political interference lectures me on governance?" She stood, holding up the Constitution. "You want to talk dysfunction? It's when the people charged with upholding this document use their power to protect political allies and punish enemies. That's dysfunction. That's dangerous. And that's exactly what happened under your watch." Gasps echoed from the gallery. The press pool was furiously typing. Barr tried again, his voice raised this time, "This is exactly the kind of grandstanding," but Crockett cut in without hesitation. "No, Mr. Barr, this is what accountability looks like. You came here expecting a soft landing, hoping to throw shadows at someone like me. But I don't hide in shadows. I drag them into the light." The panel was stunned. Even members on Barr's side didn't jump to his defense. They knew what everyone watching now knew, he had lost. And the country was watching it unfold, frame by frame, quote by quote, in real time. Outside the committee room, the clip was already viral. Cable news networks had cut away from their scheduled programming. Social media exploded with hashtags like #CrockettCrushedBarr and #LiveMikeTruth. Commentators, activists, even political rivals were posting the same thing: Jasmine Crockett just dismantled Bill Barr on live TV. Inside the room, Barr was visibly rattled. His tone softened, not from humility, but damage control. "I respect your passion, Congresswoman," he muttered, "but we clearly have different views on how institutions should function." Crockett nodded slowly. "Yes, we do. I believe institutions should serve the people. You believe they should serve power." She wasn't yelling. She wasn't interrupting. But each word struck like a hammer. It was the calm of someone who knew they were winning, not just the debate, but the moral ground. "And for the record," she added, "I don't need to tear anyone down to build myself up. That's the difference between us." Barr didn't respond. Even the chairman, who had tried to stay neutral, finally spoke. "Let the record show that Representative Crockett's time has expired, but I think she made her point. More than a point. She had rewritten the entire hearing." Crockett leaned back, took a slow breath, and for the first time, let herself smile, not the defiant one from earlier, but a quiet, knowing one. The kind you wear when the truth speaks for itself. The hearing wrapped with formalities, but the energy in the room had shifted completely. Bill Barr gave clipped answers to the remaining members, his voice subdued, avoiding eye contact with Crockett. When the gavel struck for adjournment, reporters surged into the aisles. Barr exited swiftly through a side door, his press team shielding him from the questions now flying like shrapnel. But Crockett? She walked out the front, unfazed. "Congresswoman Crockett," a reporter shouted. "Did you plan that exchange with Barr?" She stopped, turned slightly, and replied, "No. I just planned to tell the truth." He walked into it on his own. The cameras flashed. The moment was immortalized. Within hours, every major news outlet ran the footage. Primetime anchors analyzed every second. Pundits on both sides acknowledged what had happened. Jasmine Crockett had dominated the room with facts, composure, and conviction. And more importantly, she didn't just defend herself. She exposed a pattern. A viral tweet summed it up best: Bill Barr came to bury Jasmine Crockett. She handed him a shovel and let him do it himself. In backrooms and briefing halls, the political world buzzed. Some saw it as a turning point, a signal that the old tactics of political intimidation wouldn't work against this new generation of leadership. And at the center of it all was a congresswoman who hadn't raised her voice, hadn't dodged a single fact, and yet had left a former attorney general in pieces on national television. Back in Washington's political backchannels, phones were ringing non-stop. Senior aides and strategists scrambled to assess the damage. Within conservative circles, Bill Barr's appearance was being called a disaster, an unforced error, and even a masterclass in self-sabotage. Allies who once praised his media presence were now whispering behind closed doors about how badly he miscalculated. "Why her?" one frustrated strategist reportedly asked in a leaked email. "You don't go toe-to-toe with Jasmine Crockett unless you're bringing more than tired talking points." Meanwhile, inside the Democratic caucus, the mood was electric. Crockett returned to her office to find staffers applauding, not just for the spectacle, but for how she'd carried herself. No theatrics. No yelling. Just pure precision. "You just put the whole establishment on notice," her chief of staff told her. But Crockett didn't gloat. She closed the door, sat down, and finally exhaled. "I didn't do it for the headlines," she said. "I did it because people like Barr count on us staying quiet. That silence ends here." Later that evening, a clip from the hearing aired again, this time, spliced with quotes from Barr's own DOJ record, juxtaposed against Crockett's pointed rebuttals. The caption read, "Receipts don't lie. And neither does live TV." The internet had crowned a victor. But Crockett didn't need the crown. She had something stronger, credibility. By the next morning, Jasmine Crockett's name was everywhere, from breakfast shows to political podcasts, trending hashtags to late-night monologues. But what stood out wasn't just her takedown of Barr, it was how she did it. Analysts pointed out the deeper significance. For years, powerful men like Barr had dominated hearings with rehearsed answers, vague denials, and subtle digs. But Crockett had flipped that script. She didn't just defend herself, she put a spotlight on hypocrisy and made it impossible to look away. On Capitol Hill, colleagues began approaching her differently. Lawmakers who had once underestimated her were now seeking her out for guidance, support, or simply to say, "That was masterful." In a quiet hallway, one veteran representative leaned in and said, "You didn't just win an argument yesterday. You changed the tone of this place." Even those who disagreed with her politics were acknowledging her poise and strength. Meanwhile, conservative media scrambled to spin the moment, but even their narratives were fractured. Some anchors tried to claim Crockett was disrespectful, but those arguments fell flat when viewers saw the footage for themselves. She hadn't shouted. She hadn't insulted. She had dismantled Barr, fact by fact, quote by quote, and walked away untouched. And just like that, a new force had taken center stage in American politics. Not because she demanded it, but because she earned it. Jasmine Crockett's exchange with Bill Barr didn't just dominate headlines, it sparked a broader national conversation. On college campuses, law students dissected the hearing in classrooms. Professors pointed to Crockett's methodical use of evidence and constitutional knowledge as an example of how to confront power with poise. In communities across the country, people who rarely paid attention to congressional hearings were suddenly engaged. Viral clips circulated not just as political content, but as moments of cultural empowerment. "She didn't just speak for herself," one viewer posted. "She spoke for every woman who's been dismissed, every public servant who's been doubted, and every truth-teller who's been silenced." Crockett's office was flooded with letters, from young interns in D.C. to retired teachers in the Midwest. People thanked her for showing that strength didn't have to be loud to be unforgettable. Meanwhile, Barr had gone quiet. His team released a brief statement saying he respected all members of Congress and looked forward to future discussions. But the damage was done. Every time he appeared on screen now, anchors couldn't help but bring up the hearing, and the woman who left him speechless. In one interview, when asked if she considered the moment a personal victory, Crockett shook her head. "It's not about me," she said. "It's about changing the expectation, about showing that truth, backed by action, can still win in a broken system." It wasn't just a moment anymore. It was a movement that in the days that followed, Jasmine Crockett's performance became more than just viral, it became the new benchmark. Young lawmakers, especially women and people of color, began referencing her during speeches and town halls. Journalists dubbed it the Crockett effect, the idea that courage, composure, and command of the facts could cut through noise better than theatrics ever could. Even within Congress, whispers of a leadership future began circulating. One senior Democrat was overheard saying, "She didn't just defend her seat, she elevated the whole chamber." But Crockett didn't let the praise distract her. While the media obsessed over clips and sound bites, she returned to the work: committee hearings, policy meetings, drafting bills. Her focus remained on what she had always prioritized: delivering for the people who elected her. Meanwhile, Bill Barr canceled a scheduled panel appearance. When pressed by reporters, his spokesperson cited logistical issues, but everyone knew the real reason: he couldn't afford another public confrontation. Not after what happened. And just like that, a former attorney general, the symbol of political intimidation, had been neutralized not by rage, but by resolve. In a world saturated with spin, Crockett had chosen truth. Not flashy, not exaggerated, just undeniable. And the country noticed. Weeks passed, but the impact of that hearing never faded. Jasmine Crockett's clash with Bill Barr was no longer just a viral moment, it had etched itself into the political consciousness of the nation. Political analysts labeled it a turning point, noting how it redefined the balance of power in congressional hearings. Young activists began printing her quotes on posters. Editorials praised her as the embodiment of accountability in an era of evasion. But for Crockett, the true victory wasn't in the applause. It was in the shift she could feel around her, how staffers, citizens, and even opponents treated her words with weight. She had raised the bar for what it meant to speak truth to power. One evening, as she walked out of the Capitol after a late vote, a young intern approached her hesitantly. "Congresswoman Crockett," the girl asked. "I just wanted to say, what you did with Barr. That gave me the courage to apply to law school. I want to be like you." Crockett smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Don't be like me," she said softly. "Be better. Push farther. And never, ever let them silence you." That was the real legacy, not just obliterating one man on live TV, but lighting a fire in a new generation of truth-tellers. The establishment had underestimated her. America wouldn't make that mistake again.